You are listening to an episode from the vault. These are previous Cologne podcast episodes that we considered lost, but they have been uncovered and are presented to you in their original format.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Cologne podcast.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Ryan.
We're two best friends. We're interviewing friends of the podcast and the fragrance community, giving you uneducated opinions and putting to death some rumors out there.
What rumors are those?
Now, there's a lot of people who think that we hate Fragrance Weirdo. We had some concerns come our way. We're like, look, we were just giving the guy a hard time.
Yeah. Well, you were. I wasn't. Don't throw me on the fucking bus,
That's true. Yeah.
I was over here chilling, okay?
We actually got to speak with Dan, and we're going to do the funny thing about this interview, which we did way back, May 8th, actually, is when we recorded this interview with Tony. So you can tell how far behind we are on these interviews. So there's plenty more coming. But even back at May 8th, he was excited and kind of telling us we really need to check out Soma fragrances. So Dan is going to shoot us, or has already sent out in the post, some Soma samples for us to smell. And we'll do an episode with Dan, the fragrance weirdo, coming up next month.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. And we sat down here with Fredicted, Tony, a guy that you've also planned to get a tattoo with.
Matching tattoo. Yeah, that's right.
One of our friends of the podcast and fellow Patreon, Matt, wrote us a really fun email. Basically, in summary, he didn't want us to get anything cheesy like half hearts that connect when we put our arms together.
Right.
It came with the Popeye's chicken idea, which I love that, or something Texas themed. So we may do that, but that still kind of goes against what we were talking about.
Yeah.
Those are two positives.
If you're a Patreon, you know what we're talking about. Ryan and I are going to get matching tattoos, just like Tony and I are getting matching tattoos. Apparently, I'm going to have matching tattoos with everybody.
You're going to look like a goddamn passport on your way out.
That's
in this
right.
world.
Hey, I hope so. Speaking of passports, we're already getting ready for coming up Scent Explorer and next year's Essence. And I'm begging Ryan to join me. I got a 2 queen bed hotel room just in case.
I'm literally getting nauseous thinking about that long of a flight.
Yeah, I know. You could always swim.
Yeah, I'm good at swimming.
So sit back, enjoy this, and as always, thank you to myfragrancesamples.com for helping us make this podcast and this interview possible. See you later.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Cologne podcast.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Ryan.
And we're two best friends going on a fragrance journey, smelling fragrances, giving uneducated opinions, and now hanging out with Tony.
Hello, Tony.
Hello, gentlemen. How are you?
We are doing well here. It's a little bit later for you. It's the evening time over there.
Yeah, it's a bank holiday Monday here for the King's coronation. So I got an extra day off today off work, which is fantastic.
Nice.
So,
and you chose to spend it with us, huh?
Well, of course. What? You know what? Spend it with a wife and children, or spend it with two great guys. Hold on a minute. Let me be careful. No, she's not going to be listening, definitely. So I'll spend it with you guys.
Hands down, you made the best choice for sure.
Well, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Hey, yeah, and nice to meet you for the first time. I heard nothing but amazing things about you and Chris. I think he's using it as like a way to like scare me with our friendship. I need to do more for him or something, but he's just talked you guys up like tremendously.
Yeah. They say with relationships, you need to have a certain amount of, what is it called, competition anxiety to like keep them trying hard. So you guys help serve that for me.
Treat them mean, keep them keen attitude.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Well, what's the scent of the day while we got you? What are you wearing today?
You know what I put on, which is going to be, I want to talk to you guys about, because I've just listened to one of your episodes.
Okay.
I put on something called Florida Water this evening because I've not long got out of the shower.
Okay.
I don't know if have you guys tried that?
I have not.
No? Okay, well, we'll talk about this further and maybe we can do an episode on this because I've been listening to your other best friend, Steve. Yeah, he's great. Yeah, brilliant. Ryan, I know exactly how you feel now, by the way.
There we go.
Everyone says he's a great guy, but I know him and I've been listening to the most recent episodes and I'm like, you know what? We need to talk about a couple of ones that you've been talking about recently.
Okay.
I was torn between 4711.
Okay.
But I went with an after shower splash in Florida water, which we can talk about a bit more at a later date if you like.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, we'll have to get our hands on it. So is it similar to this guy right here?
It is, yeah. It has that sort of neroli, cologne, splash, bright citrus feel to it. But in the background, it has sort of a Coca-Cola smell.
That sounds badass.
Oh, okay.
Mixed in with the citrus. So it's got some old witchcraft sort of healing properties that I've heard. It's used to sort of cleanse rooms and things.
Wow.
So it's been around for quite some time. And I actually listened to Miami Cuddles on a Dan live stream talk about it as a recommendation.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, and you could pick it up on Amazon for next to nothing. It is literally about £5 a bottle or something ridiculous.
Wow, okay.
Yes.
So we put it in a pressurized sprayer and we actually don't just use it. I don't just use it on myself. I use it around the room as sort of a fabric freshener, or it's good stuff. Very, very good.
You've got to send me a link to that.
100%.
Yeah, I will do. I'll
Okay.
send a link after. I think you guys will enjoy it. Definitely.
Yeah, I think that's a cool one.
Interesting.
I want to say I remember that stream because I think that's the one that we sent a super chat for like $5 to Dan to say, hey, this one's on us, Dan. Why don't you buy you a bottle of that?
It's about that sort of money, so that probably was the episode.
Yeah.
Everything else Dan buys is about £1 million. So it must be.
Right. Yeah, I mean, but your collection is no slouch either. I mean, you have quite the extensive collection of bottles.
You know what? I listened to some of your podcasts recently, and I feel like I'm getting already to know your tastes, and it got me thinking as to what do I actually like, because I've been doing this it's 4 years this July. I've been on an Instagram page, and I still don't think I really know my taste. It changes daily, and
Right.
I bounce from wanting. I get cravings like food with fragrances. And
Okay.
sometimes I get really pissed off with myself. I spray something and I regret it later, where I think, you know what, I put that on. I should have thought about it a bit more. I would have really have liked to have worn Leighton, or I really would like to have worn something a bit more deeper and darker. And instead I put on some citrus, easygoing fragrance that wore away in 30 minutes and I haven't got anything with me to reapply. And
Yes.
sometimes I regret those decisions. But I would say, to sum it up, I have a very, very wide taste in fragrances, and it changes. It really, and it's like you guys are finding with recent episodes as well, that you do move from things to things, and things that you may not have liked when you first smelt them quite a few years ago, you may be like now because you're craving new smells all the time, and
Right.
maybe some of those smells are a little bit too much at the start, and maybe a bit shocking or a bit diffusive. And now you smell those fragrances and you think, well, actually, these are pretty badass. So that's happened to me as well.
Yeah. I think you're referring probably to Must Ravajar, how we
Yeah,
felt about that.
it's-
Yeah, that was mind blowing. And we remembered when we, like I said in the episode, when we smelled it, we knew that we didn't like it. And we're like, why did we not like this? So we found the old episode and we listened to it. We're like, can't believe how much we talked bad about it. And now we're like obsessed with it. It smells incredible. And we found the original decant we used, and sprayed it. Smells exactly what we're smelling now. We're like, we love it now. I don't know what made us change, but we love that fragrance.
Yeah, I think just our horizons were broadened quite a bit. You know, when you first start off, you're so used to something that goes against what you're familiar with. You kind of go, it's not the old trusty that I'm used to, so therefore I currently don't like it. But the more you get used to and you broaden your taste for things and you go, oh yeah, I like it.
Yeah, no, I tell you what, we went to Essence. That's where me and Mike met. I'm sure he's mentioned that on the actually he has, because Ryan's got a bit jealous.
Yes,
For sure.
Well, we didn't touch each other. It's fine.
There's always next year, Tony.
Well, there's always next year. No, what I found was in my everyday life, I don't really want to shock people with my fragrances. It's only really on a rare occasion where you're going out somewhere. And even then, my wife will complain if I wear something that's too much or I've oversprayed something. But Essence, it was quite liberating to just spray the fuck out of whatever you wanted. And like Chris with Onyx, which was his scent of the night, wasn't it? On a couple of occasions, he just overpowered everybody. So if you were wearing some weak ass cologne it just wouldn't have even been noticed. And it's not like everyone's screaming out, "Oh, I want to smell the strongest." It's just that people are smelling you, and you're like, "What? I can't smell you." That's because their fragrance is fucking strong and overpowering everybody.
Yeah, especially that one, man. Blown away. I remember us both commenting at how loud and like drifting that fragrance was. And then when he wore it the second night, he was giving us these cheeky little grins like, sorry, fellas, looks like I'm just going to be the belle of the ball again tonight.
Whereas in my everyday, I grown to appreciate scents like that a little bit more as time's gone on, but it's trying to find an occasion where I would enjoy it or where someone else would enjoy it around me.
Do you have a fragrance that you can think of, kind of like we did with Musk Ravager, that you smelled it the first time and you didn't really love it, and then you've come back around later and really loved it?
Yeah, I think there's been some sort of oud-based fragrances that's happened to, and I think that's oud in general, actually. Sorry to dodge the question on the actual fragrance, but it's oud in general. When I first smelt that in anything, and even now, I think I've got a really sensitive nose to it because I can really pick it up in the background of things, and even if it's not listed or there's something there, and I think that's got oud in it immediately. And my wife is even more sensitive to it. So anything that's got it in, she's straight away, that's got oud, and she dismisses it completely. She's just like, that's got oud in it, go and wash, basically. For me personally, when we went out one night, I wore an oud-based fragrance, and that actually was pumping off a little bit. And I really enjoy oud fragrances a lot more than I ever have. So yeah, it's I would say oud-based fragrances are the ones that I've come to like, whereas I wouldn't have done when I started. Yeah. And there's other fragrances that are maybe musky based that have got like a dirty musky note to them. Things like, have you smelt Zaharoff's Royal X?
No, we haven't.
No, you need to smell something like, I would imagine it's a bit like Musk Ravageur in a way, in terms of, well, no, it is, because I've tried Musk Ravageur, but quite some time ago. And I remember thinking, oh, that's a bit sweaty.
Right, yeah.
But, that smells a little bit like bodily odor. But the vanilla's there, and I think I quite like this sweet BO.
Right. You know, some of the Raja fragrances are the same way with that. He adds a little bit of something skanky to them, you know?
Yeah, I feel like Burlington 1819, that one, like everybody on Fragrantica always talks about it kind of smelling like BO a little bit. Yeah. I can get where they're kind of getting that vibe, but it smells amazing to me, that fragrance.
Yeah, that particular fragrance reminded me of like grapefruit and tobacco, and those two things kind of like marrying together. It does get a little on the skanky side.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, it's. I think that's a great subject of things that you didn't like and now do. I've been quite fortunate. I think that I do like a wide range of fragrances, and like I said to you, I don't think I have a favourite style. Sometimes it'll be a gourmand, and I think, oh, that's my style. That's what I really want, and because I like cake, and that's what most people associate with me is cake, and I like sweet fragrances. But at the same time, I actually do like a lot of different things, and sometimes I crave something very easy to wear. A couple of your favourites, I like Dior Sauvage, for example, and I like Luna Rossa Carbon. That's just something, just an easy reach where I just go for it, and I just think, well, I just want something that's not going to be challenging, and I like those type of sort of basic bitch fragrances, if you like.
Right, yeah, for sure.
I do like those basic bitch fragrances that Steve goes on about and you guys go on about. That's fine. I love citrus fragrances like you, Mike, as well. So I like things that are a little bit lighter. I like things that are a little bit traditional sometimes. So I could go on and on. I'm quite lucky in the fact that I don't lean one way or another. I don't think I do. And as time's gone on, that's less and less.
I was going to ask, because I know you're like us, you kind of have like a day job that you interact with people that's separate from fragrances. Do you find that when you're kind of interacting, when you're prepping for the day to go out, are you picking safer fragrances, or do you try to experiment to see if you get reactions out of people?
Yeah, a little bit of that, because it is a dirty secret in my new job that no one knows that I've got this dirty hobby of this rather strange sort of secretive world of the fragrance community. agency that no one seems to know about people that are immersed in it, or,
Right.
or our wives that seem ashamed that we're immersed in it.
Yeah.
In my last job, they all found out about it and they all took the piss out of me all the time. And I'd come in, and on the big showroom TV that was about a 60-inch TV, there would be a video of me doing a review of a fragrance. And
Wow.
yeah, exactly. So I got some stick. And the guys I work with now are probably even more brutal. So I'm not looking forward to the day where they do find out. They will. I know they will. But at the moment, I'm safe and try and keep it that way. So trying to wear fragrances for them. I'm outdoors a lot. I'm in the car a lot. I'm out in the fresh air. And I do try and use it as an opportunity to put something on that maybe my wife doesn't like, because I'm in the
Out
car
and
on my own all day. So
Yeah.
it might be something a bit sweaty, not necessarily skanky, but something with oud in as an example. I tend to use that as an opportunity. Or if I'm going into the office, or I've got meetings, then I tend to wear something a bit easier.
Have you had people stop you and go, Tony, what fragrance are you wearing, or what cologne are you wearing that you just smell amazing?
Just in case they find this, I maybe shouldn't go into too much detail, but I wore my son's Creed Aventus. Don't tell him. I bought him it for his birthday. I haven't got a bottle. And every so often I sneak a little spray or two. I went into work, and this never happens with anything ever. And excuse my dog.
No, you're fine.
Yeah, I sprayed Creed Aventus. I went into office, and the receptionist was basically following me around. She's a mature lady. She's, I would say, probably late 50s. And she basically asked me, what am I wearing? And I had to point out this £300 fragrance on. And she said that she wanted to get her husband a bottle, and she wasn't afraid to spend that sort of money because it smelled absolutely fantastic. And she basically, every time I go into the office now, I pretty much have to wear that fragrance for her. And
Right.
as I walk to the coffee room to see all the mechanics, I think, wow, I feel like I'm carrying someone's extra's body weight. And I look down, she's basically hanging onto my hand. I'm dragging her into the coffee room, and she's like, wow. So yeah, and that has been mentioned because she's obviously mentioned that to other people, and they're like, oh, Tony, here comes the Cologne guy, here comes the
Right.
some £300 fragrance.
Oh man, that's how Ryan is with me when I wear a Ventus. I feel like I gotta shake him off my leg.
Man, we said that in our previous interview with Chris, like that was a fragrance, like we love the smell of it, but we thought it died quickly. I think it was just one of those fragrances, like if you're smelling it on yourself, like it kind of goes away, but he'll wear it. And now I've seen, one, it's loud, and two, it lasts way longer than we thought because he'll smell incredible anytime he's wearing it.
We kind of have to do a confession here to the listeners as well, because we have found this as well, that if we sample a lot using small decants,
No.
and it's just not the same spraying from one of those atomizers. You don't get the same coverage as you do when you have a bottle of it. Or in my case, now I'll buy these larger 30 mil size decants that come with a big atomizer on it. So when I spray those on, it gets way more coverage. I probably have way more juice on me, and so it's louder. So sometimes in the past, we've criticized certain fragrances by just not having the longevity, but I think part of it has to do with the fact that we're sampling from a decant.
No.
And some of them you're spraying, even though they're full, the sprayers are never great, and you're pumping them like crazy.
Exactly.
A drop onto your skin. You're like, oh man, I can't smell this.
Yeah.
This doesn't last. Longevity on this is shit. You're right. You can't get a true feeling for it. But I tell you what I'm going to do at work. I think what I'm going to do is every time I go into the office, and I'll know, which is probably once a week at most, I go into the office, I think I'm going to wear different variations and clones of Aventus and see if I get the same reaction.
Oh, yeah, that is a good point.
As a tester, because I've got a few from collecting early on. That's how I found this weird and wonderful world of fragrances, was actually trying to find a way I could fund getting more bottles by getting something that was a bit cheaper than the real thing. And that came by accident because I bought a fragrance from Next. I think I told you this, Mike, when we were away.
Yeah.
Yes, I did. We bought a fragrance from, there's a department store which sells mainly clothes in the UK, but they sell some other things and most of the fragrances they sell are usually interpretations, but you'd never know what they are unless you look them up. It's not advertised, and you go on Fragrantica and they're not on there, and you can't find, so you have to do a bit of digging. So I typed in this fragrance which was called Stone, and I typed it in. I eventually found that it was a copy of Dior Sauvage, which I didn't own at the time, but I went into store and smelled it. I was like, it is exactly the same. It smells the same. What other fragrances can I find where I don't have to spend all this money? Then I found Chris.
There you go.
And the rest is history.
Have you ran into any like clones or dupes or anything that you've actually liked more than the actual fragrance, the original?
Yes. Yeah, I have. This happens on, because what you tend to find with, I think it's by accident. It's completely by accident. Some of these oils that these companies are using are never going to be of the same quality. Sometimes they probably are, in some cases,
right.
But on the whole, they'll use a cheaper alcohol. They can't kick out these fragrances sometimes at the prices that they do. Someone like, for example, Perfume Parlour, which are huge in the UK, and they got the biggest range of duped fragrances. And there's just every occasion, there's an occasion where you get something and you think, I actually prefer this than the original because it isn't as strong, or it's not as heavy on the tobacco, or it's not as heavy on the musk, which isn't usually the case, or it feels a little bit more citrusy, or there's usually something that's dumbed down a little bit, that's dulled or faded. There's got like a sheen of plastic over the top of it. But sometimes with some fragrances, for me, they need that. So there are occasions, and you mentioned one the other day, which was Royal Equestrian with Steve. And that I 100% agree. I prefer that over Leighton.
Yes.
Leighton has this tiny bit of dirty musk, or this sort of medicinal feeling in the background, whereas I feel Royal Equestrian is a little bit lighter and a little bit more airy, a little bit more poppy. So it's probably got a slightly higher alcohol concentration, but whatever they're using gives it a little bit more brightness than Leighton.
Yeah.
So that is one as an example. Sorry, that was a long way round the answer.
No, that's great. Yeah, we love that. I actually started wearing this other one that's a ombre leather clone, but for whatever reason, there's a little bit more fruit, like I guess that raspberry or whatever's in there. There's a little bit more of that than the original ombre leather, so it has a little bit fruitier vibe, and it's a little bit sweeter. And I was like, man, this is how it should be, but I really like this. Don't get me wrong, I love ombre leather.
Yeah.
But I was like, man, I could see an occasion where I'm maybe dressed down a little bit, which is always, and I could wear this version of ombre leather when I think, oh, I probably need to be a little bit more put together to wear ombre leather, but this is a little sweeter, it's a little fruitier, and I really kind of like that as well.
Yeah, I was really lucky in my early days. We won't get into like a deep, dark conversation about clones because I get every side of the argument and conversation about it. I would be a hypocrite if I sat here and saying slating clones, because that's how I found my way into this. And I also, some of the people that supported me when I had no followers pretty much are people that I'm still friends with today, and a couple of them run clone houses. They do have original inspirations, which I try and review. What I'd be more inclined to review now than I would do a clone. I think I've been there and done that. I'm not above it. I'm trying to diversify a little bit and move on a little bit. But I find it hard because I've got a couple of friends that run fragrance. I don't mind mentioning them. Rosa Salas in the UK. I know Vittor, who owns the fragrance company, very well, and he's a great guy. I get on very, very well with him. So I'd want to help him wherever I could. And Matt Wilson from half of Norton and Wilson runs Pocket Scents UK as well, which pretty much started out as a clone house.
Wow, okay. We didn't know that.
Yeah, he now has original inspirations of his own, and he's moving on a little bit himself, pretty much similar to what I'm doing. And I applaud that. It's great. I think a lot of people start out that way and then move on, and I think that's probably what's happened to me.
Yeah, before we learned about decanting it was like the only way we thought, okay, well, we can get our hands on such a variety of fragrances without just completely losing every bit of money we ever earned, because at first to get the variety, you're like, man, you're looking at some of these Creed fragrances and stuff like that. And you were just like, wow, can't afford that. And it's rare that you see carded samples out and stuff, Creed, for example, will let you buy 1 mil, little sample sets, but that's even $30 at that, and you can get a 50 mil bottle of a Cologne for $30, So once we found decanting, we shifted. But initially, before we figured that out, before you get too deep into fragrances, you see the designers, and then you're normally pitched something. Once you start looking at designers on some sort of social media platform, you'll see, some ads pop up that it's one of these bigger cologne houses going, oh, have you tried this? Or look, their version's $250 and our version's $39.99.
Yeah.
The advice that I would give people, though, as well, it's a great way of finding out whether you like a style of fragrance. That's probably what I used it for the most. But like you guys, I think you've done it the right way. I think I've got so much, I would call it shit on my shelf. Like I'd never be able to sell it now. These things from Next that I mentioned, I've got bottles and bottles of stuff that I need to find a home for because I can't sell it. It's not worth any money. It's not worth the hassle of selling it. But they sit on a bottom shelf and I never really reach for them. And as time's gone on, I reach for stuff that you find fragrances that almost make their way by default into a top 10, even though I haven't got a top 10. And you reach for a rotation of your favorites, ultimately. Yeah. And what your old favorites were that might have big dents out of tend to get relegated to the bottom shelf. Not the bottom shelf. They go to the bottom shelf. And
for sure, I have a bottom shelf.
Well, I think most people have a bottom shelf. And it's, I the advice that I would give people is that decant, sample, get the real things. If there's something you like a DNA of, I think I've got the excuse now that I've moved into the real product as a way of sampling what I like and sampling a lot very quickly and getting so many different DNAs with people like Perfume Parlor as an example, and then just moving on from that. Now, I don't really entertain them as much. I don't go out on my way to go onto the websites and think, oh, they've got a new clone out of something. I don't get as excited by it anymore. Not by that part of it. So
you don't really need as much volume too. The deeper you get in, you start to get a few bottles, and then you start to realize I no longer really have to buy 100 ml bottles if I don't need to, unless it's just a fragrance I'm totally wearing. And then you go, well, I don't really need this clone version because I could be okay with 10, 15 ml of this and that would last me forever, And
I didn't know about things like Facebook groups and places where you could buy
partials and things.
I didn't know that at the start. And I think that part of my journey's ended in a way, and I'm moving on from it. But I'm not ashamed of it. It's just things have changed. I like the shiny bottles for my Instagram page, and it's a struggle with some of these kind of houses because they use a stock bottle of everything. And when you start, if you've got 5 fragrances or 10 fragrances on your shelf, you review each one of those, and when they're done, you've got no other product. You have to go out and buy volume quite quickly to be able to keep up with your reviewing and your hobby of what you're doing. And I think, clones were the way I could do that because I wasn't aware that there were communities there that sold decants and partials and things on the grey market. I just wasn't aware of that to start with.
Well, how did you even get into it, of fragrances in general? Because it's like, especially with you and what you're kind of doing on Instagram, which I feel like is quite a bit different than what's really out there, because you really do showcase the presentation more than I think anybody else. How did you get into that? Because if you're going to do a channel like you're doing, you kind of have to get those presentations each time you show a new one off. You got to get the full presentation.
I started an Instagram page, but it was really more to start talking about the fragrances I had. And from there, very quickly set up a YouTube channel, which I then reviewed on for a couple of years and really enjoyed it. And as time went on, I spent more of my time on Instagram because I found that it was more of a chatty community. There were groups of people. I'd just randomly be invited into a group chat and be talking to 20 people in a group chat a bit like how Discord would be now, really. But it's on Instagram. It's just probably just a bit easier. And from there, I really admired. I think I was quite jealous of people's insane skills with a camera. I really didn't have that. My wife was very good. She set up an Instagram page alongside mine during COVID, and her photos were insane.
Right.
She's worked for a photographic company in working life, and she's learned how to edit and things. And she is a fantastic photographer. I'm going to say that. And I was jealous, and I employed her pretty much to take some photos for me. In return, in COVID, that I would give her some boxing lessons. So each boxing lesson, which was an hour, she would take time out of her day, which was stuck at home all day, to maybe get a photo and edit it for me for my Instagram page. And as time went on, she fucked off. Not literally. She didn't leave me. Just get this right. She closed her Instagram account, had no interest in it once she went back to work. Too much time, no time on her hands as a family.
Right.
So she stopped. I had to pick up her camera and learn, really.
Yeah.
And by no means, I mean, Mike, I know, I've seen your stuff. It's insane. I look at other people's work, and I do not consider myself to be skilled in the slightest. Slightly lucky with some shots.
I think you're being modest at this point. I've seen in Italy, you just take a shot of something on a table, and within 30 minutes, he had it ready to post just using a cell phone. And I was like, wow, this looks like a studio shot. You killed it.
I mean, what I've got very good at is I've got 2 or 3 apps on my phone, and it all became speed as well. You know, as you know, with this, it takes up time. If you've got to edit the video, edit the audio, everything takes time. With a YouTube video, it's even more time, because although you don't want to script something, you've got to know roughly what you want to say. Right. And then you've got to switch the camera on. You've got to set everything up. Then when you stop that, you've got this video that's about 20 minutes long that you need to get back down to about 5 minutes. And you need to edit that right back down and get rid of your ums and ahs and the stuff that just wouldn't be legible on camera. And you then need to make it visually right in terms of lighting and things. There's just a lot going on. And I used to have a day off in the week with no family here, and used to do that on my day off. I used to go out and do some chores for the household. Then I would shoot my YouTube stuff. I would shoot 2 or 3 videos. And then during the week, I'd edit that all on my phone as I went along, and then post maybe 2 or 3 a week. And it just worked. I don't enjoy that as much anymore.
I feel like you leaned in the direction that we did too, which was you kind of picked photography because you realized, man, video is a lot of fucking work. Mm-hmm. And we kind of did the same thing with audio. We were like, man, video is a lot of fucking work. So we'll do the audio only. And then we've got way less distance between recording and up on for somebody to consume, you know?
Lazy.
Very lazy.
Yes.
We pride ourselves on that.
Yeah, good. I do too. I tell you what, I get a lot of satisfaction from what you see me do there, Mike. If I take a picture, I have moved over to a DSLR. I don't often take things from my phone anymore. I then maybe don't upload those immediately, but I'll go out. I don't just do it all in a light box. I do try and get out as much as I can, and I try and find interesting backdrops where I live and when I'm out and about. And then I'll just take my camera with me with a couple of bottles nearly every day. And I maybe upload those once a week onto my Mac, which automatically uploads to my iPhone. So that's easy. And then I pick a picture, and within probably, I would say 10 minutes, I could edit one photo. You do the maths, you could do a whole week's worth of posts if you just had one photo, not a carousel. You could pretty much an hour and a half in bed when everyone's asleep. I could just be on my phone editing, and I see I have massive satisfaction from seeing a raw image change to something that would look good on Instagram. And I think that's probably where my passion has started to get towards. And now I know some of the tricks. It makes me appreciate the people that are really good at this. Right. It makes me really appreciate those skilled people even more, because there are some insane pages out there that I could only dream of being like.
Yeah, but I mean, in probably another 5 years, you'll be there and you'll be doing it all with your phone,
Yeah.
all the editing and stuff.
It does take a lot of research. I've done a lot of research, but for me personally, I think part of lifestyle has moved me in the direction that I have. Busy family life, working all the time, and I managed to incorporate what I do now into my everyday, so it becomes habit, and you just do it. Whereas I've chatted to you about this, Mike, I really would like to get back onto YouTube. I really would like to get onto TikTok with short and reels as well. They're taking off like, man, short, sharp minute reviews on things. That is something I really would. And every time I think, you know what, I'm going to turn the camera on, I can't be asked to do it. I think, no. And I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm just a little bit nervous now after not doing it for so long. It's almost like going back to the gym after you haven't been for 5 years. It's going to be absolutely crap when you go back. But you've got to drag yourself out and go and do it. And I know I'll be fine when I do it. And I'll probably get into a habit if I keep doing it. But it's that moving that foot over the line and comfortable doing what I'm doing.
We're kind of experiencing the same thing, I would think, right now. We've kind of like bit the bullet and we're going to do more video content, video-centric content. But for a while, I mean, it's not that we can't do it. We know how to do it. But again, we in our head, because we are lazy, we know how much work it takes. And we're also kind of sticklers because we do want things to really hit and be perfect. And so it ends up being a long-winded thing for us to create something like that.
Yeah, you often, the more you get immersed in something, the less you do, I feel like, because you're more critical of it and you go, oh, well, no, I don't have the time to do it this way, so I'm not going to do it. Whereas when you didn't know any better, you just did it.
We just did a review of Summer Vibes by Dolce & Gabbana here.
Mm-hmm.
And immediately when we recorded video for it, and we immediately were just like, wow.
That sucked.
That was fucking garbage. But we know it's going to have to take repetition, doing it over and over. And eventually you get more comfortable with a camera. As much as we have filmed people and stuff, it's like we're not as comfortable as we are just being us. And we were just like, we just got to ignore this camera. But it is so hard to like do that.
Go ahead.
I think you're selling yourself short a little bit as well, because listening from the outside in, I know it's difficult with yourself. I hate the sound of my own voice, but you guys, the professionalism, just listening to you open the podcast. Like, guys, for anyone that listens, I did wonder, they did that off the cuff. That is not pre-recorded and edited in. I thought that's what you were doing because it is just seamless. I know you're doing it time and time again, but you put someone on the spot to do it, they usually fuck up. I do.
For sure.
And I'm sure you have. But that was not a pre-recorded intro. It is just boom. So you guys on camera, and because you can see past editing now, I think you'd kill it. I really do. And there's two of you. It's a different dynamic to what everyone else is doing.
It does make it easier. I think it is a lot harder for people to get into it and sound natural just by themselves, just talking to the camera. Whereas with me and Ryan, we could ignore the camera if we wanted to, and it would be even more natural than us trying to, we try to, if you listen to the podcast, I know you have been, at times we try to talk to the audience just as much as we do talk to each other. And I think finding that balance is when you find a really good podcast. I'm not saying we're good at this, but we're trying to. When you find a really good podcast, it's not just two people talking, but it's like there are three chairs and you're sitting in one of the chairs. You're listening to them talk to each other, but at times they turn to you and talk to you. And there are people that do that with video that do that really well. And then there's people in the podcast realm that do that really well. And that's something we're striving to do, is to continue to include that third seat for the audience so that we can talk to both each other, but also focus on them as well.
Yeah, there's something that I've always wanted to put into, maybe because I've done quite a few interviews as well, very similar to what you guys are doing now, really, and really enjoyed that part of it and getting to know different people. And I've listened to, I'm a podcast fan anyway. I love podcasts. So you get different ideas from different podcasts, and the way they do that, normal people wouldn't pick up on it, but I do try and pick up on little things that maybe would work. One thing that I think would work really well for you guys is that I've been listening to a podcast called Lab Bible, which is they pick really interesting sort of characters that have gone through real life experiences and interview them. And the interviewer is fantastic, really calmly spoken, really lovely diction and lovely vocabulary. And he really sort of communicates himself fantastically well. He's obviously very well educated. And the guests, he's got this lovely, empathetic sincerity about him that is fantastic. That I know that you guys, the communication skills with that and the way you tune into people's brilliant. When he finishes the interview, he gets the producer in and someone else that's maybe doing the camera work in the background, and they've gone, and they might probably do this at a later date, but they'll say, it's only 5 minutes. It's literally this is what I enjoyed about that conversation. This is cool. I really enjoyed listening to what they went through. And as a listener, you've just done that. You've just listened to the whole of someone's autobiography pretty much. And you've got those feelings. But what I really enjoyed about it is listening to what the people that were interviewing, what they then thought. Did they feel the same as I did? Did they get emotional at certain things the same as I did? And I think in the fragrance community, no one's doing that. And you've got the perfect platform to do that. Once you've interviewed someone, to go back and go, you know what, I really enjoyed that conversation because of this or because of that. And just have a couple of minutes chat between you about it, about dissecting what happened, because you're just doing what the audience have just done. And I think
I actually think that's a really genius idea.
Yeah, we need to edit this part out where you recommend that so it can look like a genuine original idea from us.
But it's not genuine from me because I just picked it up from another podcast. So,
no, I do love that perspective.
Yeah, if you were listening to a podcast, say me and Chris were doing one and we interviewed you guys, and then afterwards, or let's say we interviewed someone you really like. Let's say we interviewed Jeremy Fragrance.
Yeah,
and then you guys were listening in. And then Jeremy Fragrance disappeared. And then me and Chris were having a sort of a secret chat about that, i.e. it's not secret anymore. We're talking about it live. Yeah. So what did you think of Jeremy, Chris? I thought he was an absolute nutcase. But you know what? I really did like the way he communicated this and he did this and he does that. And I understand that a little bit more now. And that conversation is just it's really addictive to listen to. So, yeah. There's an idea for free.
There we go. We're going to take that one to the bank for sure because I love that.
I'll say one thing. Our interviewing skills, he's usually the guy that he'll sit down and do the interviews when we're like filming for somebody else outside of this community. And I'm always one behind the camera or checking, making sure mics are running stuff. Mike's so well spoken.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But for some reason, and of course, towards the end of an interview, I'll always like chime in from like 6 feet away, like a question. But between the two of us, it happens every time. I don't know why, but somehow we always get the client to cry and confess things.
Oh, yes.
And we'll be crying too. We'll be all into it.
To give a little bit more backgrounds, we're like, we've been a little bit obscure about what we've said, we do for our day jobs. But one of the things that we have done is film testimonial type videos. And so we have to conduct interviews with people. They're either giving testimonials for a brand or we call them interviews when they're the owner of the brand. We call them testimonials when they're people that are obviously giving testimonials for the brand. Yeah. But either way, we'll ask them. And whatever reason, we'll have this organic flow that somehow will strike a nerve. And by the end of it, they're crying, probably from tears of boredom or something. But they end up crying. And then you can't do that in every testimonial video, though. You can't just have people crying back to back to back. But
not to get on the soft subject, but one was, I won't say too much information, but she ended up being a really good friend. She was talking about one of her family members passing away, and it was like right after his grandmother passed away, and my mother passed away 3 months after his grandmother. So this interview happens, and we're all sobbing.
We're all crying. We're talking about these memories, and we're all just crying. And by the way, listeners, we've cut out a large portion where we actually had Tony crying quite a bit. Yeah. But we've cut that out, so you guys didn't have to watch that. But for whatever reason, every interview, there was some tears shed.
I was only crying because Steve didn't go to Esson. So.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I was too. One thing I will say that you do really well, Tony, to kind of get back on target here, your post, what do they call them, down at the bottom, like the descriptions that you put down, the captions that you put on your photos on. Yeah, your captions on Instagram, you kill it. It sounds like you've wrote some write-up for each fragrance, but it's like your perspective, what you really liked about the fragrance. It's this typed out review that you give. And that's one thing that I also really don't see other people doing that you do really well. I have to commend you on that.
Oh, thank you. You know what? I think I've always struggled with that because I do sometimes, although I've been doing this for a while now and you get better at it, in terms of putting the work into trying to smell raw materials and stuff, I've not done that as much as I should have done. So sometimes picking something out of a fragrance, I actually do struggle with. So what I try to do is to try and describe it in a way that makes sense to the ordinary person. To me, I would call myself still fairly ordinary in this, in terms of I haven't swallowed a thesaurus to explain a fragrance.
Right. You're in the same camp as we are, really.
Yeah, it's no disrespect to people that that eloquent that they can do that, because I really respect that and I'm jealous of it. But it's I try and put it in a way, look, what am I getting from this? What do I smell? What does it invoke? And try and put it in a way where, in a short enough way as well, I don't try and waffle on with everything, but try and keep it real and keep it, this is what I get from it. And I really do feel that people that have watched my stuff, have watched me on camera and listened to how I speak and whether I get excited about something or not, I think it's really evident in my posts. And if it's something that I think that is okay, it smells nice, or you know what, it might not be my taste, I'll say that, but you can do it in a way that's nice to the people that have maybe got a small brand that have got a business to run.
Right.
And it's being respectful of people in my eyes. And I think people know me well enough to know if there's something that I maybe don't like as much, which I am really lucky isn't often with me, because like I said at the start, there's such a wide range of stuff I like anyway. What I don't like, I get moments like you, Ryan, when you smell the Atlas fragrance. People gonna keep bringing it up. Sorry, buddy. But,
come on.
It's not something I've smelt, but I could get a real understanding of what it smelt like instantly from your reaction as well. And I think that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
But they've got a business to run, and I think Mike tried to bring that back a little bit. But
yeah.
It's still, people have got thoughts and feelings about things, and people communicate them in a different way. And I do try and communicate it in a way that it's going to be respectful at least. So
yeah, I don't want to have to apologize for my actions here. But
apologize. I loved it.
But I do. We've kind of taken the approach, honestly, here, at least over here. And again, if people have issues with how I say something, it is what it is. But we've been the regular guys going up to a fragrance counter, and if you're smelling like 3 or 4 different things, you're usually like, "Ooh, that's really good." And then sometimes you're like, "No." You can just discard it so quickly, you just don't care. And so,
because it doesn't vibe with you.
Exactly. And that's kind of like that is what it is. It doesn't mean that it's bad for everybody, but like that one particularly, especially after all the hype that's been written on it. And I believe you live close to Steve, right?
Yeah, I live probably about 20-minute drive from Steve.
Oh man, it's worth it. You need to go.
I'm jealous.
Yeah, you need to go ask him if you can get a little sample of his bottle or get a spray of it. Yeah, because it was overhyped, and maybe my harshness, you may love it.
In your opinion, it was overhyped. I think that's what the thing that I will say about Ryan is that Ryan in his head lives in this perfect utopia where everything should be fair, and if something feels unfair, Ryan will crusade against it.
Yes.
And that is just, that's him. I'm more like, hey man, sometimes it do be like that. And Ryan is like, it should not be like this. Yes. This is wrong. This is, for all these reasons, this is wrong. And and I love that about him. I love that he's so emotionally charged when it comes to this is right and this is wrong, and everything that I believe to be right has to be right, and if it's within my power, I'm going to make it right. So I can feel when Ryan is, if he's really cheesed off about something, he's like, I'm going to get this pulled back to where it should be, and for me, I go, maybe it's not my taste or whatever, but for you, it was the overhyping of it that you were like, you felt like it shouldn't have been hyped that much, and therefore you're like, I'm going to tear this son of a bitch down so fast, and for me, I'm going like, it smells good, but I can also say eucalyptus tea by Bath and Body Works smells good, and I'm willing to pay $15 for that, and they're very similar fragrances. I probably wouldn't spend $100 and something on this, If it was $15-$20, I'd be like, wow, this is great. But the more expensive it becomes, the stronger and harsher the critique becomes as well.
Well, when you hear in people, if people have got given a load of bottles free on YouTube and you can see it, all of reviews get released at the same time. If everybody's calling it the new king.
Yeah.
And then you get it and you smell it and you think, what the fuck are these people talking about?
Exactly.
I sort of get it completely. Whereas if it was justified, if you smelt that and go, you know what? It's quite ordinary, but it smells brilliant.
Well, look, my opinion means absolutely fuck all. I mean, I know that. I know I'm nobody important, but to whatever select people do listen to us in this show, I do want them to know, like, if I don't like something, I'll be honest. I want them to trust me, because for me, he's right.
It's about integrity.
It is about integrity for me. And like, I will watch those people that I'm like, man, I look up to these people. I value what they say. And so whenever they were all saying that, and I'm like, wow, I did not like that. It hurts me a little bit.
Yeah.
We've gotten emails where people, we've said sorry, but we've gotten emails where people like didn't like that me and Mike like Hossava,
Yeah, that is one thing where the more I get into it as it being an art form, the more I can appreciate things that don't work for me, but aren't necessarily a bad thing. Yeah. Like I go, I could see where this is a really good fragrance for somebody. Not for me, but it was that way with that diptyque fragrance. We smelled it and I instantly knew, I would probably never wear this, but something about it was so intriguing that I was like, oh, I really like this. It's not for me. I definitely wouldn't buy it, but I really like this fragrance. I like the direction. I like everything about it. I think it's unique. It's super cool. Like, I'm getting more into that now. Like, I feel like I'm starting to grow in that way to where I can really appreciate things that aren't for me. I think Ryan, on the other hand, if something's not for him, fuck this thing. Get it out of my sight.
Hey, just so you listeners of the show know, you can go back to our Le Labo Tonka. Which one was that?
I know. Yeah, Tonka 25.
He's not innocent.
I'm not. No. I'm not saying that. I've definitely grown. But again, I had overhyped that fragrance myself.
You did.
I had said, I'm going to fucking love this. Everybody says, Tonka bean is so great. And at the time, I could have smelled, chocolate versus Tonka bean. I wouldn't have been able to put the, differences between them. I wouldn't have known. But I just thought from some of the fragrances that I liked that I'm going to love this Tonka forward fragrance. And then I smelled it and I was like, I don't love this. And
you said a lot harsher than that.
So. Yeah. Well, to be fair as well. So we buy the decant and Ryan doesn't care. He'll just go smell something. Me, I go, I'm going to wait till the episode. I want my true reaction. I don't want to smell it. I don't want to accidentally smell it. I'm not going to spray it. So I've waited and we kept pushing it back. And 3 or 4 weeks, I'm like, oh, I can't wait to smell this thing. It's going to be so good. I just know it. And then we do the episode and I was just like, after waiting all that time and in my head, it was building and building. It's going to be so good. And then I sprayed it and I was like, oh, such a letdown. And then, for me, I was like, this is terrible. I hate this.
I've never seen a man get so mad in my life like he did the other day. I brought him a cardstock. I was actually 2 of them. One was Creed Love and Black.
Yeah, which I had already smelled before.
So I was like, what do you think of that? He's like, oh, is that Creed Love and Black? I was like, yeah. He's like, oh man, it does smell good. Yeah. And then I let him smell this other card.
And he goes, what do you think about this one? And I think it's one we've already smelled, just haven't smelled it in a while. So I smell it and I go, oh man, I don't really recognize this one. It's not bad. I kind of like it. I go, what is it? And then he tells me it's an homage fragrance that we've never done an episode on.
Yeah, he's like, fuck. You wasted an homage episode?
Yeah. I was like, these are good fragrances. We can't just burn these episodes.
Oh, God.
I've got to commend you guys now on the amount of, you're pushing out some episodes at the moment. Have you found a way into your working lives and stuff to make that work quite well for you?
Yes.
Have you found a nice balance? Yeah.
Just grinding, really.
Yeah.
At times, it's a little much for us, but we've just made the commitment. We've said over the course of these next few months that we're going to do what we think we should be doing for the podcast, for the listeners. We're going to really just put in and try our absolute best. And then we've seen in the past, anytime we've put some effort behind it, we've seen true growth. And we were like, we need to at least give that to the listeners that have been so committed. We've had so many people. We took such a long break. We had so many people hit us up.
Shame on us too.
Yeah. That we're like, all right, to make up for the fact that we took way too long of a break, we'll put in the added effort, and then we have seen it. We're growing quite a bit. We're continuing to grow. So we're going to do that.
You're putting out great content, you will do. And just go and chase it. But you got to enjoy it, haven't you? You've got to find that balance, and you've got to enjoy it. And it's harder for you too, because there's two of you. It's both of you feeling the same way at the same time.
Yeah.
Whereas if it was just me, for example, I can do what the fuck I want. Whereas when it's the two of you, you've got to both be on the same, let's get this done. If one of you feeling like, no, I don't fancy this today, that could get frustrating for the pair of you if you both found that. And you seem to have found a way where you're doing it, which is commendable. I do have regrets with YouTube and not maybe pushing that side, because I was seeing some growth and a lot of people started to know who I was through that. And I've got regrets with that.
Same here. We neglected YouTube completely. And we didn't even upload audio episodes anymore. And we had a lot, just to kind of be transparent here, we're human. We look at like what our goals need to meet to get to a monetization level. And I was like, man, we're at like 1,000 watch hours, out of 4, you only need 4,000 to get monetized, right? We shut that all away and totally neglected it to where it reverted back because it'd been so many days to where we had to start over again.
Yeah, it's just consistency. And I think it's just a lot. It's a lot for one person to do. It's a lot for two people to do. Like you said, you got to be on the same page. There's been days we've showed up and we said, okay, we're going to do an episode this day. We've showed up and something's happened in our personal life or something like that. One of us was off and we're like, we're not going to do it today.
Yeah.
We'll do it. We'll try again tomorrow because, we're just not there. In the very beginning, we pushed a little too hard. We got burned out on it. And that's kind of why we're doing this, like we're doing with you, Tony, is like we're trying to find a balance to where we do the episodes ourselves, but then we do feel kind of out on an island being a podcast. And I think in this community, it's very YouTube centric, because I saw even at Exance, like you have a massive following on Instagram, but it's like they really, all the metrics are YouTube. At least what we've seen.
It's probably because they want us visually be able to have their bottles and stuff showed off.
For sure, yeah, it makes sense. Yeah. But yeah, like I felt like even a lot of brands, that was the one thing that they kind of focused on, and they would be like, oh, this person's on YouTube, I know them, Whereas you could be over on TikTok right now, which I think is growing. You could be over, which it's hard to tell on Spotify and stuff like that. You can't really tell how many subs somebody has, there. So even though I would say we have the largest fragrance podcast out there right now, there's no way for anybody to know, or maybe they just don't even care. But, everything's so measured on YouTube, but we kind of neglected that because we wanted to be a podcast first sort of a thing. And now we're trying to do both, but also still not take away from the podcast. We don't want to sacrifice the podcast to try to be a YouTube channel, because that's not ultimately who we are. We just want to complement the podcast by creating content that can go out on those platforms, but not pull away from our primary goal, which is to just be the best fragrance podcast we can be.
Yeah, well, I think you'll get there. You carry on. I love the interviews that you're doing, getting different people on. I really like that part. It makes a nice break sometimes from the normal listening. I think it's nice for the listeners to get some background on some different people. That's something that I really enjoy doing as part of my journey, is talking to people like you guys and meeting new people and interviewing people. You've got a great balance between you of asking the right questions at the right time. And if one of you doesn't seem to pick up on something, the other one will pick up on it immediately, which is
right.
It's really good. You've got a really good chemistry between you to be able to keep everything moving as well. So yeah, I commend you both. You're doing a great job.
I appreciate that.
Well, we're winding down on this. So what is one fragrance you're really excited about right now? I'm sure there's a million, but if you had to pick one that maybe you're really wearing right now, or you're excited to do some content on that you've got in, is there one that you're excited to tell people about that we can perhaps share with our audience as well?
Yeah, there is. There's a brand in the UK. It's Soma Parfums. It's the fragrance weirdo Dan Rothschild. He's got his own brand. I think he does ship over to the USA now, but he's just released a new fragrance called Axiom, and it is very citrus heavy, but it's almost like a sort of orange popsicle. It's got like this creaminess to it. It's got this woodiness, but it's got this really lovely spice in the background that really comes forward. So it changes. When you first spray, you think, oh, this is really citrus heavy. Then it goes a little bit creamy. Then the spices really start coming through. I thought I picked up on pepper, but there's quite a lot of, I think, ginger in there as well. And it really goes sort of spicy, almost Christmassy. And then that sort of fades away and you're left with like a vanillic woodiness, which is there with this sort of orangey goodness in the background. It's quite hard to explain because it does a lot of things very, very well, and it doesn't lean one way or another. So you can't just say it's a citrus cologne with a little bit of a woody background. You can't say it's in the realms of any type of fragrance. But it's one of these sort of, I don't like this expression, but sort of Swiss Army knife type fragrances that you could wear, very versatile. You could wear it in any scenario, in any season, you could dress it up, dress it down. And I think that's what I like about it a lot. I think I like these fragrances that are easy reach, that just work in any scenario, but are interesting enough to keep me sort of engaged in that fragrance for the day. And it, because of the changes it makes, I think it does that. And not only that, it smells bloody lovely. So it's that's one that I'm quite excited. I'd really like to get onto camera and actually just say that, really. But I've got to switch the camera on to do that.
Right.
I've done it with you guys.
There we go. Yeah, we'll shoot this over to you, and your job is done. I think I'd love that. I mean, Ryan can attest to how much I love dreamsicle type everything. Yes. I think orange and vanilla, those two work so well together. And then what you were saying, like the sweeter wood can kind of go in. I could see like that amber wood type vibe, that sweeter wood come through. I'd be excited to check that out for sure.
We should do it, and then we'll reference this episode.
Yeah.
Excellent. So Soma Parfums Axiom, brand new. It's very, very nice.
That's great. Well, Tony, thanks so much for joining us on this episode. I know that at times Ryan can get really long-winded, so I appreciate you sitting through that. But it's been a pleasure. We've been excited to do this, and this was one of the ones coming back from Italy. I was like, man, I can't wait to do our episode with Tony, because I made sure to put you on the spot in person and be like, Tony, please come on the podcast.
I appreciate. I love doing anything like this, and I appreciate you having me on. And sorry if I waffled at times too. I do that. I talk a lot. I apologize.
Not at all. It's been great. And would you promise to be back on again?
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. That's great.
You know what I was going to do on this episode? I was actually going to bring in an ice cream and to stop.
Oh yeah. We didn't bring that up,
I was going to start licking it in front of you just randomly while you're both full flow and just like.
We were going to bring that up because we posted the short on Instagram. You sent us a voicemail, so we got to talk about this before we jump off the episode. Ryan, go ahead and bring it in.
Just to answer your question, for people that don't know, he left us a voicemail. What episode did we put that on?
It wasn't on an episode. We did a video for it.
Well, to answer your question, if it was just me and him, I've seen him do a lot worse than that. So, yeah, I think the answer would be yes.
Yeah, I think there's a small layer of ice cream or gelato that was on the ground that was probably compromised, but there was a good portion that I probably could have got away with.
100%. I think I would have gone for it.
Yeah. Well, I was really trying to impress you guys. You and Chris, you guys are, you're highly respected in the community. I couldn't do, things like that around such highly respected company.
Oh, stop it. No, carry on.
Right. Well, Tony, thanks so much for joining us. Ryan, take us home.
Yes, sir. Thank you for coming on here. It was nice meeting you again. And again, can't wait to have you back on the show again, since you promised you can't break a lie to people who won't set them. So
that's right.
And until next time,
spray it up, y'all.